Hi, Sam.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Good. How are you? How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Enjoying the sunny day today.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Hope you were able to get out and enjoy it.
Yeah, we were. We saw the eagles actually down at Waterboard. There were two of them making quite a commotion in not the nesting tree, but a different one.
Oh, no kidding. Whereabouts in Waterboard?
It's like, let's see. So if you're walking down the hill, there's that cement barricade. It's probably like, I don't know, 70% the way to that barricade, in one of the really, really tall trees up there. Yeah, something was going on. I've never heard them squawk quite in that way. Although I did see a video that someone had posted, or some images on Nextdoor, that one of them had gotten a goose earlier. I don't know if it was the same eagles, but close by to here.
All right. Wow. I haven't been over at Waterboard Park in a while. Our offices used to be relatively close, and I could stroll down Pearl and go up into the park that way. Still waiting on Nancy.
Did anyone go to the that Clackamas meeting or the Clackamas meeting with the bike and pedestrian walkways that I think maybe is still going on? I think that was.
No, no. What was that all about? Sorry.
I don't know. I think maybe it's just starting now, actually. There was at least somewhat of an overlap with this meeting, but just about improving pedestrian and biker access and connectivity within neighborhoods. But I think they were talking about like not Oregon City, perhaps, because they were saying unincorporated, but.
Okay. No, that sounds like a good one.
Is this with the county?
Yeah, yes, yep.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the public outreach campaign they're doing, but I've not been involved.
Is it correct that they're not like looking at all at Oregon City? Or,
I don't know.
Okay.
Good question. I
wonder if they aren't. I was just wondering like why, because I think the rest of Clackamas County sounds like it's included.
Yeah. Well, we last did our TSP, Transportation System Plan 2013. And I know we're due for an update. And I know that's been discussed with the Public Works Department as well. So hopefully we'll find out more following the City Commission goal setting. There'll be a lot of discussion about transportation. There always is. Great. Oh, I just got to text Steve. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm going to propose that we get started with our work session. How's that sound? Thanks, everybody. I know when Nancy gets on, I know she wanted to talk about something else during the regular meeting, but it might feed into this discussion. So for those of you who have not been involved in the work plan in the past, I think we had a hiatus in 2022 and we didn't do any work on it. So we're essentially starting over. And I was just going to share my screen to show you where we're at, and hopefully I can. There's desktop 2. Let me know if you can. Oh, I think I have to grant. Oh, okay. This is what happens when you use your personal computer. Okay. Well, that looks a little tricky. No. No. Well, I'm going to take it that you guys can see the work plan on your computers, and I'll just talk through it, which may be better. How's that sound? And I'm going to be writing as we go through these. My idea was that we would just run through these line by line and talk through them, and you guys can kind of tell me whether you want to keep a particular activity or remove it or modify it. And we also need to keep in mind that the City Commission has not set their biennial goals for 2023, 2025. So we may need to get through as much of this as we can tonight and perhaps come back and tweak it after February or March when the City Commission does that. It could take a while. But in the meantime, the NRC and our bylaws have several activities, and the responsibilities, I should say. The responsibilities are numbered 1 through 5. And the first responsibility is to promote community involvement in natural resources conservation. And under that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 activities. And the first one is to support and promote volunteer participation for a public tree inventory for city properties, parks, street trees, school properties, and other public lands. Let's talk about that one. Feel free to dive in. I know we've talked about this being a priority for the committee fairly recently. And let's see, I just want to make sure I don't.
So I can start. I'd like to keep it on the list. And we have more impetus to do so, especially for our ash trees, to get those inventoried. Not only for, better planning and prioritization for when emerald ash borer arrives, but also for FEMA insurance reimbursement. So just like any other insurance, you can't get any reimbursement without having documentation that you actually have something that got damaged.
Right.
So that's a priority to kind of help move the tree inventory higher.
Okay. Can anybody see my screen at all?
No.
It did pop up for a second, but now
It popped up for a second, didn't it?
Yeah, can you screen share? And then is that possible?
So
I see it, but we can't read it, so
yeah.
It's just very small.
Maybe. Because I'm on my personal computer because of all the problems the city's having with theirs. And
yeah, oh wow, that's like so close to being able to read, but it's still a bit, getting better.
And it's blocking it because of my firewall at home.
Well, you guys might want to, we could have it up there for recording purposes, but if you guys want to navigate to the city's meeting webpage, you can find the links to all these materials and you can see them better on your end. And then we can talk about them without having to try to read the tiny window in Zoom.
I recommend, and I'll read through these. So Sam's for keeping this activity.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah, I agree.
Great.
Is it, just because I haven't been a part of a work session before for the NRC, is it typical to like tweak or add, like because emerald ash borer is kind of a new thing in this area, like would you want to specify that is something in particular that should be a focus, or are we just kind of going and yes, yay or nay, and all the current items?
Well, yeah, you're free to modify and suggest different language.
I guess just because like if new people or additional people are on and they might not have the same information or be kind of monitoring the same issues. And so just to have like, so something doesn't get forgotten, like could we add that about the emerald ash borer? So that
the difficulty is I'm having incredible technical problems. So I can't show you that I am writing down what you're saying.
Oh no, like I don't think that's the issue. I just mean like to have it written down. I'm sure you're actually writing it down when we're saying that. That's not, yeah.
Well, that's what I need to do. Otherwise I won't remember. So I'm just like, what is going on here? Okay.
Sorry you're having to navigate all those technical. I know they're having a lot of problems last night or 2 nights ago with the CIC as well. It kept cutting out.
Well, okay. I'm going to get that out of the way.
Do any of you have a link to this? You can just drop in the chat. I'm over here trying to find it and having trouble.
I don't think we're allowed to use chat, right?
This doesn't have a chat.
Email it. I know chat would be so convenient, but
Brian, I'll email the
Okay.
meeting links,
Also-
and then it's got all the stuff. You can
could
just
you
open
email
up the
me
tab.
also?
Thank you.
Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I think I really messed up my computer because I tried to share something it didn't like.
Did anyone email Nancy? Does she know that we're meeting right now?
Yeah, I emailed with her this morning,
Okay.
and she had some suggestions for the meeting, so I assume she'd be coming. All right. Pull that up again. All right. So
Right, on the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
great. Thanks, guys. EAB, FEMA. All right. Next one, communicate with neighborhood associations, citizen involvement commission, and the business community. NRC members will promote programs such as the Heritage Tree Program, Arbor Day, etc., through presentations to other groups and boards. Keep, remove, or modify.
I think we can keep that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And just put a big X in the keep column there. Next one, support a process and media, brochures, signage, media apps, etc., for naming and interpretation of local, natural, and geological features for improved awareness of watersheds, enhanced tourism, etc., support walking tours, etc. This is an ongoing project. So examples of this would be Greater Oregon City Watershed Council's signage along streams, and Public Works Department helped out with that, so that people could understand the hydrology and natural resources of streams in Oregon City, even though they were not readily apparent. So there's that. Is there anything about this one you want to keep, remove, or modify?
I think we should keep that one. I would like to maybe see something added to it. Improve. So it specifies local natural and geologic features. And improved areas of watersheds. I think that there's a lot of really cool animals and plants here. And I don't feel like they're getting highlighted at all. I guess I would be interested in including not just features of the landscape, kind of that you see on a topographic map, but also the living, the biotic elements of the ecology as well. As you said, the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council has been doing a lot of really great work. And right now at Singer Creek, they're planting a lot of native plants. Maybe something, I know it's a different kind of organization, but Friends of Trees has signs in front of all their trees that they plant with more information, and just kind of having an openness, or, if the NRC can make suggestions as to where educational signage might be the most accessible and useful. Yeah, I would like to add something along those lines.
I have a quick question. Is there a resource, maybe not at the city, but that we could tap into to help develop content and graphics for these sorts of signages? I know the city has a lot of resources, but I'm curious if you might need to reach out to partners.
Well, my first guess is the library. And then the Public Works Department has a sign shop. And, for their kinds of things, they have some interpretive signs that they put up in stormwater ponds, for example. So explore that. Resources. Other departments, library. Works. Great.
Oh, and then I guess another one would be, I know Elyville's doing a pollinator, and maybe Sam, you could speak more to this, but doing pollinator habitat in some land that's maintained by Public Works, and just having like something small that's saying like this is a pollinator garden. It is to provide food and nectar for insects, and these are the species that you might see here, and they're seasonal gardens that people walking by know what they're looking at.
Yeah, they
even if there's just like a QR code with want to find out more, kind of, if it's just a small sign, just having a link or some way that people can follow up if they want to.
Would this be on city-owned land, or would it be?
I think, Sam, do you know exactly where, like, I know John was,
Parkland?
It's not parkland. It's kind of like just like little curbs kind of by the road.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're in the right of way, John might know. I do not know, I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
Discussion.
Curious. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if the Xerces Society has like a little, plaque or like those little, metal signs that you can get.
Yeah.
They one that says something like, a pesticide-free yard. That's like the sort of size I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if there's something similar that the Xerces Society might have that we could easily implement or institute.
Yeah, they have a couple signs that I think would probably work great.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Sam, did you and Nancy stay for the city commission meeting? I took off after the presentation, but
I didn't stay much beyond 8. I was falling asleep, unfortunately.
Yeah, understood. Well, one of the directions that was given, because they didn't adopt what we had proposed, they wanted us to go away and talk with NRC more about the street tree code, because they wanted to explore pollinator gardens and the right of way idea in more detail.
Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
And discuss what's available as far as support from the Xerces Society and that kind of thing. Specifically asking the NRC to come up with some suggestions for, how these things would be constructed, where we would go for plant lists and that sort of thing, and maintenance, and what other issues that we need to consider in terms of the right of way, such as making sure that it's mostly an enforcement issue, but making sure that there's still clearance for ADA and for people to crosswalks and that sort of thing.
Yeah, was this at the commission meeting that was like, I think, what was it, a couple days ago?
Yeah, it was when we were talking through the minor street tree code amendment.
Okay. I'd be happy to put together like a list of, I guess I'll watch that on the city's YouTube channel to go and get those exact questions, but I'd be happy to put together a list and then, include all of you if you have things that you want to add or amend on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's it has support. It's not a whole lot. It's not something that we need to create a lot of code around, in my opinion. It's more an educational piece and a public outreach piece that we can augment what we've got, and then get some support for it from Xerces. So I think they had suggested, Xerces Society has suggested that we invite them back if this is something that the city wants to pursue, and it sounds like they're totally supportive of it in the especially in the strips that are less than 3 feet, where we're not going to be requiring replanting of street trees.
Yeah, I had talked to Bob LaSalle, who's the on CIT about Xerxes coming and doing a presentation. And I think the next meeting is March 7th for the B City, which is something that's, what they came before and talked with us about. And I think maybe we could try to include that also as like an item for the, on this master plan list that we're working on now. Or master plan's not the right word, but yeah. But yeah, I think that, maybe going to the CIC would be a good opportunity, to solicit for neighborhood support. I know Elyville's on board. I think there's at least a couple of people in Rivercrest who would also be interested in helping out with that. But yeah, do you have any, suggestions as to what else to do or?
Well, I guess going for B City status would kind of take care of a lot of that. So then, working through that process with the Xerces Society, we would probably hit all these issues.
It could be, as comprehensive, I guess, as the city wants it to be. But certainly they could, I think, provide guidance as to all those, the tree code amendments.
Right. So,
and I think they have a lot of resources, about that. Like I know Eugene has their IPM document online, and there's a couple of other Pacific Northwest cities that have those documents available online that we could perhaps borrow from, or at least, take examples from.
Okay. Eugene. So I've written support efforts to attain B City status, looking at other cities like Eugene and what was the other one?
Tualatin has one.
Tualatin.
I think Ashland might be.
Yeah, there's so many. I think there's like 80, I want to say, in the US, and a lot of them are on the West Coast. Seattle has I think Seattle also is B City, and San Francisco might be, but it might be broken up into smaller areas because those are so populous. But yeah, there's no shortage of, like large cities that have adopted, and because B City is a very flexible, like IPM is, it's very dynamic, and so it can be easily kind of catered to, I guess, like different cities' needs.
Okay. Great. So I've written that support efforts to attain B City USA status and okay. What I'll do is after today, for the next meeting, we'll actually adopt the work plan. I think right now we're just in draft mode. How's that sound? So jumping back to the list, Fourth bullet. Continue to strengthen and encourage participation in a heritage tree program. Parentheses, using brochures, informational signs. See money for incentives, further outreach, and social media. And in 2019, the NRC recommended adding site visits by the NRC to the process. Anything about that one?
Do we have any sort of dedication events that celebrate the induction of new trees, or I don't
No,
think we've done any of those?
I
no.
think surely there was a ceremony. I remember seeing pictures for the that one that unfortunately fell on Carla's house shortly after. But there was something for that. I don't know if it was like just for that tree, or if that's something that all heritage trees get.
We provide the plaque and we provide a certificate, but as far as a ceremony, no, there isn't one, Sam, and it is something that could be talked up a little more. The designations went on the city commission's consent agenda. So I will make a note.
Maybe we could do, just in addition to Arbor Day events, we could do a recognition of all the heritage trees during those Arbor Day events that we have. So if not individual, dedication ceremonies or events, we could just do like a, for the year, here are the heritage trees that were inducted. Here's where they're located. And maybe we just have like a presentation board that shows pictures, or a table where there's pictures and people could see the pictures.
Okay, and we don't currently have a brochure.
And I wonder if I have not looked at the website. I'm a bad NRC person. I'm curious if the heritage tree stuff is up there.
It is up there. We're in the process of revamping our website, so we haven't made any changes or improvements to the existing website. We're waiting to do that. But that would be migrated over to the new website. And apparently the new website has better capability for inserting photographs and graphics than the old website. So that might be something we can do.
And I know the funding, like to incentivize the heritage tree program. We I think in another meeting we also talked about if a tree needs maintenance, perhaps trying to figure out like fundraising options for that fund, so that like in Shirley's case, like that tree needed to be trimmed for years and it was neglected and then it died, unfortunately. And just to like prevent something like that from happening, I know there's I think a GoFundMe or something, but just something that is like through the city, so that if somebody is in a position where they can't afford to maintain their large, beautiful tree, there are options for keeping that tree alive a long term.
Yeah, that is, I think, something that we could potentially use tree mitigation money for. We have the tree mitigation fund. So suggestion to provide.
I mean, it doesn't seem like something that would pop up all that often, given like how many heritage trees are currently, but I think that tree was like, I don't know, 250 years old and maybe could have been saved if it had been worked on earlier and funding was the issue there, or at least that was what was told to me.
Yeah, it was.
I have a quick question when you're done with your point, Pete.
Yeah, I just heard pieces and parts of that, and I heard it from not just the Ingebrigtsens, but from the neighbors on either side about how much money they had spent on maintenance over the years to make sure the tree was not a threat to their homes and that sort of thing. And was pretty steep. So on a tree that size, I'm not sure how much we would be able to provide, but yeah.
Certainly. But just having like something, or if it's an easy fix, it doesn't cost a lot of money, but is, cost prohibitive for somebody. Of course, that money would need to be used judiciously, but just having like something that is easily accessible so people know that it's an option.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
About maybe an opportunity. Is there any nexus with water utility? I know city gets, I think there's like TLDRs, so it's total daily
the stormwater
stuff.
Yes,
stormwater stuff.
Here to talk about that.
I'm wondering if there's a nexus with that, given that trees do so much to promote, interception with water runoff and large trees in particular. So given that we have these heritage trees, they tend to be large canopy, and those are all goals and of not only the city for, climate change and heat island reduction, but also nexus with stormwater, which might actually have some funding. Maybe not prioritized, but I'm curious if we could find a way to just make it relevant.
I don't disagree with you. It's a completely different program. It's not in planning. It's public works. So we would have to engage with public works staff and the stormwater program to set up something like that. And it would take a lot of, I think, resources to do it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't suggest it. It's just something that is going to take a long time to get into the public works program for stormwater. I'm trying to think of the best way to approach that, and where it would go.
So for those who are curious, the TLDR is about, I think I'm saying the right acronym. It's
TMDL, total max.
TMDL, thank you. Total daily. It's a permit situation for for our water treatment plants to emit into the rivers, basically. So we have to get a permit for those, and it costs a lot of money. And for every tree you plant, you get an offset credit. So I'm curious if there's any interest with maybe the permit authorization agency, maybe they have an interest in, recognizing these heritage trees as important offset opportunities in the city, and it would give an incentive for the city to promote them more, and maybe even find a way to attach it to the landowner, who's maybe attached to the water stormwater system.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to find all these nexus points where it is relevant. They have utility. Those utilities can maybe provide some financial benefit.
Right. So the city's stormwater permit is part of the Clackamas County stormwater permit. So I think probably we would want to have John Lewis talk about that with us some more. What I've written is to create incentives to plant trees for stormwater credits through the MS4 permit. I'm just wondering if it would be a good idea, that would be tied to a sort of more general tree planting incentive, not just a heritage tree planting, because that we're talking about a very few trees really in the short term for the heritage tree program.
Sam, a quick question on that. Do those incentives heritage trees because they're already planted, would that not qualify, or is this like additional trees planted?
Well, Heritage Tree Program is just for, as far as I'm aware, just existing trees that are voluntarily designated on private land.
Yeah.
And, and, you know, it's always been about the criteria for heritage designation. Taking it a step further into stormwater management and that sort of thing is making my head spin a little bit.
I'm just trying to make the case that these large existing mature trees do a lot more for stormwater infiltration and runoff than these small trees that you plant today. So I'm just trying to make the case, like, to the permitting agencies, like maybe it's of interest to them to help us maintain these big, beautiful trees that not only are, mature and do a lot to catch runoff, but also the city recognizes them and has, protection covenant with them so that the trees have more staying power. So mature tree, more stormwater infiltration, and they're going to stay around more than a little young tree. So maybe I think we could make the case easily to John, and he'd be like, yeah, that makes sense to me. But ultimately, it's going to be the agencies that make the call, I bet.
Okay. All right. Okay. And by doing so, we might incentivize more people to voluntarily designate their trees. Is that kind of what we're saying? Yeah.
Exactly. And it would have like a win-win situation for the permit if it is recognized that the authorizing agencies agree, like, yeah, let's do that. And they put some more credit towards trees that are specifically designated as heritage trees. And then that would make us a little funding for maintenance of these trees. So it might mean that the heritage tree process has to go through them, making it a longer dedication process. So I'm creating more paperwork in this idea, but you don't get money without paperwork in this, in this business. So
yeah, well, we'll have
to make
the public works guys do it. Sorry, since it's their program. Yeah. Okay. All right. I wrote that one in, and we'll share it with Public Works. And that kind of ties into the next one, which is support funding habitat improvement projects with private landowners within and outside the city, including Clackamas Cove. Projects could include planting trees for additional shade.
I like that one. I think the Bee City or the pollinator gardens could fit in well with that bullet item. And we could put it into that and also say something along the lines of encouraging or providing education materials for on private land habitat development. Does that make sense? Like somebody can wordsmith that better. What do you guys think?
I guess I'm just wondering, like, can we, because I know that there's like new master plans for like the waterfront master plan. Would that be replaced now by the Clackamas Park? Is that the same, or would that be?
There's the old adopted waterfront master plan, which is part of our comprehensive plan. Then there's the urban renewal plan for Clackamas Cove, and the restoration plan for the Cove water quality, which is dependent on urban renewal funding.
Okay.
So that's kind of tied the Cove being a public-private partnership with the urban renewal and a private developer of some kind. So that's still in the works, right? It's something that the Urban Renewal Commission has been working on with economic development, which is James Graham and his staff. And it's tied to the vote that's going to the voters in May, because they want to make sure that they can keep the water clean and circulating within the Cove, because they have the algae blooms in the summertime and that kind of thing. So a restoration plan for the Cove is going to include, I would assume it's going to include a lot of tree planting, and but it's also going to include a lot of hydrology work and dredging and that kind of thing, because it's going to be an engineered solution of some kind for the hydrology. Not my area of expertise, but I know that they've had several plans discussed over the years with John Runyon, who's a watershed expert consultant. Get the name of his group, but yeah. So
Yeah, thanks for all that info.
And then there is a development master plan which was approved for the Cove, but it's most likely going to get amended because so much has happened since the last one. It was last approved in 2017, I believe it was, and we've had a lot of economic changes and then COVID. So, but yeah, so that's in the works. Anybody else want to chime in?
I guess I have a quick question, Pete, or to the rest of you. What would be a reason that this group, excuse me, would suggest removing something from this plan? Are we considering, do we have enough time for this or whatever? Because I feel like everyone here is just going to say, yeah, let's keep doing all that stuff and do more. What's the other side of the coin? Just so I can kind of have it in the back of my head.
Well, yeah. We want to take into account resources and staffing. And if we don't have the capability to do it, most of the time, if it's to do with public land, it's concerning public works or the parks department. And so I kind of feel like the messenger a lot of the time, and I'm not fully engaged with what those people are actually thinking about in terms of their plans. If it's what planning principally does is regulate private development. So to the extent that but we can also, we also regulate the overlay districts, like the natural resource overlay district and that kind of thing. So unfortunately, the planning division has kind of this regulatory mandate that we have to enforce the zoning code and that sort of thing. And we have a limited staff to do that with in permitting. And we need to have more incentives in place for people so that they can say, well, if you do this, you can get a stormwater credit, for example. Go talk to Public Works and work that out. So I would say, in answer to your question, a lot of these are ongoing things. they're worthwhile, and they need to be kept on the radar in front of the city commission as they go through the biennial budgeting process. So that's what I would do with the work that you're doing tonight, is basically forward around a draft for you guys to say, yeah, that's pretty much what we said. And then we'd send that up to the city commission so that they can be informed about what your priorities are. The kinds of things that we would take off of here are things that aren't currently relevant in terms of the economy or whatever reason. If there's clearly no funding for it, or if we've already done it. We used to have on this list, who the NRC member was that was going to lead on it, and who the staff person was, whether they're into planning or public works or somebody else, but we took that off. So this is a little more open-ended. It is a working document, and it can be amended as needed. So,
okay, yeah, that gives me a little bit of context. I'm certainly support the bullet point that we're on.
yeah. Okay.
Thanks for helping me there.
Sure.
I was wondering that also, Brian. Yeah. Because I guess that question arose to me when I saw the Thimble Creek concept plan. I don't think Thimble Creek is one that I've heard mentioned, at least in the past 6 months or so. When I've
Right. The Thimble Creek concept plan was readopted. It used to be called the Beaver Creek Road concept plan. It's a plan for everything east of Beaver Creek Road, and that area, which is a mixed use area, has around Loda Road, north and south of there. The land ownership is pretty tied up with a few families. There are a few significant tree groves in that area, and the NRC weighed in on that in 2022. And actually visited the golf course, when the golf course is part of the area within the plan, so the plan area. And the discussion was how to preserve trees as that property owner engages with prospective developers. And the golf course owner, Rose Holden, is very supportive of the idea of designating heritage trees on their property, as opposed to creating a new regulatory overlay district. Because she did not want to. We've got quite a bit of regulation for that area already, in the natural resource overlay and the geologic hazard overlay. So they came to the discussion point with the city commission that NRC and the Holdens would kind of work through a process of identifying trees for designation, and that the golf course would come forward with a designation proposal at some point. And as I believe they're kind of holding off on it right now because they're still engaging with developers. Yeah, it would be worthwhile to re-engage with them and see where they're at. Because we did go out there several times and measure trees, and everybody, including the Holdens and also the Southworths who live to the north of there, pretty excited about preserving trees along the edge of the golf course, and also along the edge of the old airstrip that is out there, which is still used. But there's some trees along the airstrip that they wanted to preserve as well. Some pretty big, good-sized conifers, and I believe some oaks as well. Yeah. So kind of an ongoing thing. You want to keep that one?
I don't see any reason to remove it.
Yeah, I'm curious to check in on it. Maybe we could just keep a running list of properties that are, in this early development stage where there's interest in preserving trees.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to lose track of things like that.
Right.
It seems a pretty low lift, pretty easy lift in my mind. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No. We just, we just have to say, kind of keep them engaged.
Would it be possible? I don't know if this is outside of like the breadth of the NRC, but like there was a development that has cleared some land of trees on Holmes Lane, and there's a huge stand of really like I by the time I went, I think a lot of them were removed, but I kind of checked in maybe midway through, and it was like I don't know 3 dozen or so very probably, I don't know, 70, 80, 100 feet trees that were moved really close to park property. Would it be possible to just like, I don't know, like if the city has development plans in areas that have mature trees to just bring it up so that we can, I don't know, like look or see if there's ways that those trees can be maintained and the property still developed in the way that they're kind of intending to. If there's any like easy saves, low hanging fruits in regards to like preserving tree canopy.
Mm-hmm. I was intimately involved with that development, and I was not intimately involved with the appeal. But when I came back to work for Oregon City, I was intimately involved with it again. And it went through the Chapter 1741 code review, which does not mandate protection of trees. We have what's called a clear and objective set of standards for residential development, which is kind of a state law. The state law doesn't say that you can't preserve trees, but what it does say is if you're going to preserve trees or mandate protection of trees on development property, you have to have a clear and objective process for it. So it would require, in my mind, amending the tree code, which is the public process and it involves everybody. The development community, everybody else, every property owner in the city would get a notice and that kind of thing. The NRC, we have a section in the Natural Resource Overlay District that encourages developers to come and talk to the NRC prior to a development application in the Natural Resource Overlay District. And then there's the neighborhood association process, which they're required to meet with the neighborhood association before they apply to talk through a lot of issues that come up in the development process, such as traffic, natural resources, et cetera, et cetera. I think the park property issue that came up as a result of that came up after it was a very complicated process because I think what happened basically was the tree inventory that we have did not expressly require applicants to go off-site to measure how far across a property line the tree canopies are, because they can't trespass and that kind of thing. And frequently these problems come up right along the property line. And we were able to, after the land use decision, we were able to force the developer to preserve the trees along the property line on park property. But it was the land use process. It was very, very convoluted and difficult back and forth between the contractor who was out there to, basically grub the site and the engineering department. So it was very messy. It was not ideal, and it wasn't a comprehensive review of the tree situation. It was an isolated set of, as far as the trees on the interior of the site, they were all reviewed through the code and mitigation calculations and all of that. So we can encourage developers to preserve trees, but right now we can't force them to.
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of like, because we're just a committee, like just if there's like a gentle way of just promoting or encouraging developers to seek out, like, because maybe they don't know. I mean, if they're contractors, like they're not arborists, or I mean, I know none of us are. I don't think I don't actually even know. Pete, do you have arborist certifications?
Yeah, I'm a certified arborist. And,
okay, I mean, so you'd have a lot of perhaps relevant input should they want input.
Yeah, it comes up during our pre-application conferences. We always tell them, if you have a tree that's within 10 feet of a building footprint, try to preserve it. We have 2 sets of mitigation requirements, one for trees that are removed within a building footprint or construction area, and one for trees that are removed where you could ostensibly save them. So it's a mathematical calculation based on a certified arborist report. So they have to turn that in. We currently don't have a city arborist whose job it is to vet arborist reports. Sam, go ahead.
So there are ways, and like Pete said, they're very complicated and expensive to implement tree canopy preservation code into a tree code. And it would require not just review with different departments and public input. It would also intersect with legal, with the city lawyer and other area departments, but it would also require a lot of data and quantification.
Right.
So like you would have to, in some, at least as far as I know, you would need to do a canopy analysis to see where your baseline is, and then have a goal. The city would state, we want to have a goal of, 30% canopy and maintained in the city. And that's what Portland does. They have like a 33 or 30% canopy preservation. And so it's expensive. LiDAR data is expensive. And doing the analysis and then establishing these goals that would then feed into the clear objectives that Pete was saying would be needed to then meet the need that state law requires. So it would have a lot of meat behind it. It would take a lot of work. But that is what kind of other cities have been doing. There is a lot of information and guidance freely available to help municipalities develop these. I have access to that literature if anyone's interested in looking at it, but it is a lot of work, but it is doable.
It's doable. And like you said, it starts with a plan and an inventory as well. You mentioned the legal side of it. Yeah, if we overregulate, we can be sued for takings, which is where the property owner makes a claim you've reduced the value of their property through overregulation. They will sue us, and then we go to court and figure out whether we've applied a clear and objective standard or not. And if we haven't, when we can really run afoul of things. But yeah, like you said, there are plenty of cities that have a more mandate for preservation of large trees. So I guess if we're going to tie that back to the work plan, you're really talking about making a recommendation to amend the tree code for private development. That's what we're talking about. And you would be recommending that you amend the tree code for private development to prioritize preservation of mature trees to the extent the law allows. And so yeah, that's a code amendment process, and a pretty significant one. I don't know if the city commission has got that on their agenda, but they do have on their agenda whether or not they're going to adopt a climate action plan. And I would anticipate that folds into it. Folding into that process would be tree preservation, not just tree removal and mitigation. So there's an opportunity potentially there to do it, but I think it would take several years and probably go into another biennium. No.
So what you're saying is this is a really easy and fun process. That's what I'm getting.
Well, I plan to stick
enjoy
around.
it. But I
Yeah,
do,
just joking.
yeah, I mean, I think it starts with, Oregon City hiring a city arborist or a city forester, and then that city arborist gets things on track for an inventory and plan, and then they move into what they want to tweak about development regulations after that. But I could see that would kind of be the sequence.
Do you guys think kind of taking on this topic and putting it in public documents might bring a certain kind of attention to our group that, maybe we should consider until we have like a very solid plan to go after this? I think there are certainly people who make their living developing properties that if they were to see that it's on our plan that, we just want to make their jobs harder, we might be bringing something
Well,
to our plate to be ready for.
I'm not worried about that, Brian.
Okay.
I think you're perfectly within your rights to suggest this kind of policy action.
Okay.
It's just a question of, talking through and getting to a recommendation that you all can support, and then running it up the flagpole with the planning commission and city commission. But at this point, we're if that's something that you guys want to put on as an activity suggestion, then I would suggest taking a few things off the list to make way for it. And along the lines, you might want to say, support the climate action plan adoption of a more comprehensive tree protection code, something like that.
Yeah, that seems really reasonable and manageable.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
Piece of cake. Let me write that one in.
Make our lives
Sure.
more interesting.
Yeah, thanks for all the additional info on like the Sam and Pete on how all this stuff works.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't verbalize how it all works because it's complicated stuff, but there's a, we need to there's so many steps that have to happen. And it's kind of like everything's contingent on something else. And right now, the contingency seems to be, well, there's two contingencies. Does the city commission want to move forward with a climate action plan in 2023, 2025? And two, are they going to support the city arborist idea and budget for it? And, we've heard some initial discussion that they are supportive of that in the budget, the city arborist position. So we'll see where it goes when they go for their retreat. But I'm writing support the climate action plan to more, what did I say? Comprehensive tree protection ordinance. That's what I said. Okay. So that would be over here on other activity suggestions. Oh man, what just happened? Okay. I know it's just went somewhere. Oh. One moment, please. Technical issues. Okay. I apologize. Not seeing how that all my notes went away. Save. Save. Okay. Next one. Support focused investment partnership with the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council and the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board for coho salmon habitat improvement project from Newell Creek to Abernathy Creek. I believe this was suggested by a former member of the NRC, Doug Neely. Is that something you guys want to keep supporting?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we know maybe we should invite someone from the Watershed Council or OWEB to give us an update, maybe just a letter saying like, here's our current list of priorities, and we can see if it makes sense for it to live on here or not. But but I'd be curious to see like if they've where they are with these
Okay.
action items, because it seems contingent on what they're doing, and I'm happy to support them no matter what. But these are specific language for specific land watershed. So I'm kind of curious what their status is, and if they're just on hiatus, then we could put it back on the list in a couple of years, and not babysit it too much.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm with Brian. I'm like, this list is getting longer. It seems like a lot to keep checking in with if no one's doing anything, and it's contingent on their work. Then, and if it's on hiatus for them, we could put it on hiatus for us just to keep our focus on stuff that's active.
Yeah. Okay. I'm checking with Doug Neely. See where he's at. Okay. And see. Then finally, support partnerships with the Oregon Heritage Tree Council and Oregon Community Trees. I believe we are. So yeah, keep that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. Well, that was the first set. That was pretty long. Next responsibility, we have initiate recommendations and review updates to the city's comprehensive plan, codes, and policy as they relate to statewide planning goals that are integral to our mission. Under that, we have activities, update the nuisance plant list and native plant list. And then it also says support a coordinated strategy for invasive species management in 2021 to 2023, such as encouraging city participation as a partner in the Clackamas County IPM program, improve public outreach and information about invasive plants. I think this is something we are doing. It is ongoing work. John Lewis has several staff involved in the IPM training for stormwater management. And the Parks Department has John Waverly, who's also been involved with the Clackamas County IPM program. We are, as you know, we do partner with Greater Oregon City, sorry, not Greater Oregon City, watershed, but the Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, and provide links to their website, through our website. And whenever issues of invasive species come up during development review or through nuisance code complaints, we always offer them as a resource and say, call the Weedwise program, call Sam Leininger or the other folks over at the district and see what they can do. Oftentimes the types of infestations that we can complaints about are just an initial between two owners, and they're big infestations. So, but at least if the sending them to the soil and water district is very helpful, because they can get into the technical discussion side of things, and people get interested in solving the problem rather than just focusing on the neighborhood issue. But in terms of updating the nuisance and native plant list, that is still something that we haven't done yet.
I have a memory that we had recommended, instead of us having a static list, we would just refer to the soil and water list. And I remember there was some technical reason we couldn't do that. If I remember way back, maybe it was a year ago, with a Quilla saying something that for developers, they had to have some sort of reference list. I don't know how static or, set in stone that has to be, but the world of invasive plants is not static.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Anyway, that was our recommendation, given that the technical scientific names change. What is the worst, the worst species can change. We get new ones. The list is fluctuating. So it would be best if we didn't have a list, given that we already have a county resource that does it.
Agreed. Okay. That one. Okay. And let's see. Next one, updating wide water resource and wetland inventory. Now, this is something that would require a major budget. And what we changed this one to was support staff efforts to address sources allow. NRC recognizes the need to update the city's water resources, stream, and wetland inventory, which was last done in 1999. This involves an extensive and expensive local wetland inventory and Goal 5 process. Funding for this effort would need to come from grants. It is unknown whether funding sources are available or whether this is a city commission. Normally, that kind of thing comes from the state as a mandate. The way that we've been approaching the changes over time is through the Natural Resource Overlay District. So if we encounter wetlands or water resources that don't fall within the Natural Resource Overlay District, they are usually handled through the state process by DLC, Department of State Lands, or and the Corps as need be. So it's not that wetlands are getting missed; they are getting reviewed and inventoried, and they are coming up during the development review process. So, I think there's more attention paid to them just as a core in the standard course of development review now. And so go ahead.
I have a question. So what about those properties that are being annexed in and they don't already exist within the overlay?
Mhm.
What is the approach to that? I mean, I know that generally they get a wetland delineation, but
Yeah.
if we have requirements for properties that already exist in the overlay,
Mhm.
these are new properties that are not in the overlay. So, or even if, and maybe they would, like, maybe a tiny bit of the buffer might extend past the old boundary, city boundary, into the newly annexed properties. But I'm curious, because there's this disconnect now where we don't have a boundary on these newly annexed.
Well, we did adopt the NROD out to the UGB based on Metro's habitat conservation area maps and what Title III mapping we had. In the case of, and that's done during the concept planning stage, like Park Place concept plan or South End concept plan or Thimble Creek, a Goal 5 inventory is a requirement. So we have to show compliance with Goal 5 during the annexation process. And if there's additional inventory that needs to be done, then that would need to be done prior to a development application being filed. And in the case of the Park Place crossing development, for example, they did encounter several small wells that were not within the Natural Resource Overlay District and were not regulated because they were so small. But the ones that they encountered that were fairly large were already on our map. So, I guess that the city commission has recognized that The 999 inventory is pretty static and out of date, but for the most part, I think it covers like 99% of the situations it really covers. And the buffer itself is deliberately set 10 feet beyond where the vegetative corridor is. So there's a little bit more. It's a pretty extensive buffer. It goes up to 200 feet from the more sensitive resources like wetlands and perennial streams. And it's dependent on the LIDAR data as well. But yeah. I don't know if this is a city commission priority. I don't think it is right now, just because of the expense. But if you want to keep it on the list, we can.
Hey, do we have a function or kind of clear process for taking something off this list, but making sure it's considered again, next time around in 3 years or whatever?
No, we don't.
Okay. So if we want to make sure as a group that we hold on to something, then it seems like it makes sense to keep things on this list, even if we might not be able to get to it. And I don't know, potentially like change the language.
Sure.
Or something to like monitor, or but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can modify it to reflect the current biennium, for example.
Yeah.
You can.
I guess my thinking is
right now, it says update. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just my thinking is this is our way to tell our city like what we're doing, and the way that I'm understanding your description of this, I'm having a hard time finding a way in my brain that we're going to do anything.
Yeah.
And so maybe it is our plan to like watch this for a period of time, or watch this until something either specific or general changes. But that way, we as this group can make sure that we save the idea in case there's a new group 3 years from now. So it doesn't just disappear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the way it's read right now, it's pretty long. The last sentence really doesn't need to be in there. I mean, the last two sentences on this really don't need to be in there. I mean, it's clear that funding needs to come from somewhere, and it's clear that funding is unknown. That doesn't change the fact that you would support efforts to update it if those resources were available. So
yeah.
Maybe that's best if we can just shorten it.
Yeah, I guess, certainly none of this is my like specialty, but my thinking is that first set of words there that we're going to update the citywide resource and wetland inventory, like, kind of like, no, we're not. But I like support, or like monitor, or I don't know, something else where we can be forthright with the folks in our city that like we can't necessarily have any action items here, but we don't want to fall off the radar.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a dedicated delineator out there going out and updating the wetland inventory. That makes sense, Brian. And we're not going to hire one anytime soon to do everything.
Right.
So it makes sense to say that we would support staff in the process of updating the NV. Definitely would be interested in seeing, properties that come in and seeing if they have, wetlands on site, that they're mapping them properly.
Mhm.
But I just have I have a background in wetlands, so
Right.
that's pretty unique to this particular board. But that's also a personal interest of mine. So I don't know if that's relevant for everybody else. But I would definitely say I would support staff in making an effort to update this inventory given its age, and that we have some properties that might annex eventually that have never been in, even with the DUGB extension mapping. So I bet that data is not terribly new either.
Right.
So so I support all this,
Okay. So
and I'll try to do what I can.
fund an update to the 1999 wetland inventory and water resource inventory. Local wetland inventories. Okay. I'll show them that one. Okay. Anything else under 2? I think basically the tree code thing would fall under that. So I'll move that down, the support the climate action plan through a more comprehensive tree protection ordinance. I'll put that under this one. Okay. Responsibility 3, we're cruising. Receive notice and comment on land use applications and projects within city limits and the urban growth boundary. So as you know, we're kind of limited in our scope to setting policy or advising on natural resources policy, and commenting on applications that do not meet the standards of the NROD or Geologic Hazard Code. For if it is a type 2 application, generally speaking, then you would be able to comment as individuals, but not as a group on the applications. And that was something that was discussed by the city attorney when they came and kind of presented about the scope of the NRC's role. So this one is a little bit out of date. I think maybe, but it does say review and comment on requests to vary from the standards of the Natural Resource Overlay District geological. So yeah, okay. So this would be in line with the discretionary reviews. Okay.
Can I ask for clarification? Are these for requests for variances? Is that what?
Yeah. So the overlay district says that if you want to vary from the standards, it has to go to the planning commission, like a variance, and then the NRC would be asked for input on that application. It doesn't happen a whole lot. Also, if there's a type 3 application that includes a natural resource overlay district, we would send notice of that to the NRC as well. So like a master plan or zone change, for example, any major development that is going before the planning commission has the NROD on it and that kind of. Yeah, I guess we'll keep that one. Number 4, conduct orderly meetings and that result in good communications activities.
That's the easy one.
Yeah. Maintain and update a list of NRC priorities and activities to share with Planning Commission and City Commission. Are doing that. Nancy gave an excellent presentation to the City Commission, by the way. And man, what just happened? My computer is freaking out. Sorry. Okay, there they are. Excellent. Responsibility 5, last one. Coordinate with PRAC and planning institutions on at least an annual basis that results in good communication and mutually beneficial results. Underneath that, we have support a local levy for parks and invite Kendall Reed, Parks and Rec Director, to meetings. So we do those things. Anybody have any comments on those?
And is what's the status on any sort of levy for parks?
I do not know.
Anyone know? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to answer that. Sorry. Get back to you.
I was just curious. I know that was an idea that I think we had hopes in the last NRC that like we see the need for a levy for parks. They definitely could use some better support. And I don't know if it was just a dream that the NRC had that I'm sure that PRAC would share. But with the hiring of Kendall Reed, we had a lot of like, oh, maybe, we could work with Kendall and support him in the Parks Department. So I don't know if this is an active item for parks at the moment, but I'm just curious. I'm sure they wouldn't hate it, but it might not be something that's on their plate right now.
Emily, what's your feeling about this being on PRAC?
Yeah, it's not something that I've heard discussed in the time that I've been on PRAC, so I can't speak to whether or not it's an agenda item. I know they need more funding, but I don't know if are steps being taken to see that there's a tax on, a specific thing so that parks are funded with allocated, dedicated funds. I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's an item of discussion for the upcoming budget. And so I'm sure there'll be some more coming out of that discussion for parks. But like you, I'm not clear details. So I'm not sure if it's going to be a levy or a fee or what form it's going to take. So
maybe we could edit the language to say something of support local funding options for parks.
Yeah.
So we don't leave it at levy. Levy's pretty specific.
It is pretty specific.
If it's not a levy, then whatever parks makes sense for them, I'd want to support.
Okay.
I know that there was recently the cost recovery plan. I think that was proposed earlier in 2022. And I know the commission was looking at that because there were some unintended consequences, like for neighborhood associations. And I don't know if that would be under the same umbrella as this agenda item. I think it would probably be different because that's like small fish. Like a levy, would be in a lot more like system-wide.
I think, they were talking about programming fees for park use that were more in line with what other cities charge. I do remember seeing that on the agenda. We have the other method that we use for parks is system development charges on development. which can only be used for building new facilities. You can't use them for maintenance of facilities by law. So there's the SDC, but beyond SDCs, there's, parks grants from the state, which they use, and that thing. So if they've never come to the NRC for a support letter for a grant but if they did, we would support it, right? So, yeah. So I think changing it to local funding options for parks and recreation is fine. We'll do that. Okay.
And I'm happy to keep inviting Kendall to our meetings so he knows that we support increased funding for parks.
Yes.
At least.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I have notes in 3 different places now. I've got a Word document and I've got 2 PDFs with writing on them. I'm going to consolidate them into one. I don't know how I managed to do, but I did.
Hey, before you kind of wrap, I have a question or a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we've done a few times in the last year or two is receive like a public comment and really like a request for consideration to make a recommendation to the city commission.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that we do that something that should be communicated here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you mean you want a more concrete way to provide recommendations to the city commission? Or
not necessarily a more concrete way to do it,
mm-hmm.
but a way to communicate to, let's say, potential landowners, even potential developers, people who may, for whatever reason, be in opposition to development, to just express to them, if someone's asking, what does this committee do? Well, one of the things that we do is you can come say to us, this proposed development is going through an area that I think is protected or should be protected or whatever. And I'm asking you as a committee to, consider my comment and consider taking some action, even if it's just an action to refer it to the city commission. Is that redundant because somebody can go talk to the city commission anyway? Or is that what we might call a service that we provide?
Well, there's the voluntary situation where it develops and talks to you ahead of time, which doesn't always happen. But it does occasionally happen. And I think the North End Master Plan may have been an example of that for the landfill redevelopment. Once the public comment period is open, though, as a public body, if you are going to comment on a land use application as a group, you have to provide public notice that you're going to do so. That's been the problem, is that your meetings do not coincide with the notice period for land use applications. So you can comment individually, but you can't comment on behalf of the NRC. And then, if the planning commission or the city commission tells staff, take this to the NRC, when I hear from them, then we can go do it. But that's not in the code. That would be some discretionary decision of those bodies. And it would be, we have to abide by a decision deadline under land use. So if what we're doing affects the 120-day deadline mandated to maintain, we have to work with the applicant to extend that deadline to accommodate any additional meetings. I'm not sure I'm answering your question exactly, but
well, I guess it's more of a discussion idea, or a question of like, are we the appropriate people to say that we do that? Is it even appropriate for us to do that? I know we had a situation, I think it was this year, where somebody came to us. I don't even remember the details, but they were basically asking us to make some kind of recommendation to the city commission, and we're like wanting to do what we can, but not really necessarily sure what we could do. And I guess the question is are we the people to come to for that? If we are, should we share that in or maybe we're not.
It ties back to the notice for land use applications that vary from the standards. The Planning Commission is really the body that deals with the zoning code and the development code and that sort of thing. You guys are more about setting policy and helping craft policy than implementing policy.
Right. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Staff is, there to help with the technicalities of getting it through the code amendment process, for example. Whenever we change the development regulations, that's called a legislative action. And it has to go through Planning Commission and City Commission in a public hearing process. And you're a part of that initially, because before we even go to Planning Commission, we do public outreach and we go to the committees that have something to say about a particular issue, and that would include NRC, the Citizen Involvement Council Committee, and then the general public. And then it goes up to the Planning Commission and City Commission for adoption. Once it's adopted, it becomes code, and that's what staff uses to evaluate these development proposals. And like there has to be, we have to offer a clear and objective track as well as discretionary track. So that is what the type 2 process is all about, is this community development director level decision. So that's planning staff. It can be appealed to the city commission, but staff gets an initial decision. And then the higher, more discretionary items are the ones that are like zone changes and variances, master plans, conditional uses, and other things that require a quasi-judicial decision from those guys. But so for the most part, you're not involved in those land use decisions, to be perfectly honest. You're not. We do provide notice on the type 3s. So where your impact really comes in is stuff like the tree code, natural resources code, and the inventories that go into the protection of those regulated resources. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, I really appreciate all that extra context. That makes sense.
Okay, thanks. I wasn't sure if I was making much sense.
No, you are for sure.
Okay, good.
Well, maybe to what we could do, Brian, is like something along the lines of like receive public comment for policy amendments or something along that line. Does that answer your question about how to be a service to the community?
Yeah.
Would that be of interest? Because like what Pete said, it sounds like we have very limited input for projects in the pipe, but maybe we can, people could bring us policy that we could then, look at and discuss.
Yeah, I think it ties back to responsibility number 2, but maybe you add a bullet there. Because there's the wetland inventory. We talked a lot about that, but we didn't talk about other types of policies other than the tree code. So if you want to craft something or verbalize something, and I'll try I'll write it.
And something along the lines of receive and consider public comment or requests to changes or even amendments to current policies, you know, I don't know, with regard to natural resources. Is that like take too broad? Maybe that's just a start. I'm hoping some folks in this full body can put that in a better way. But I do like the idea of you know, telling our city that this is a place you can go with those things. I certainly recognize the importance of keeping this list as clean and short as we can also. And so, you know, if there's not an appetite for adding a bullet, it's not going to break my heart. But that is something that we've done, and it might make sense to tell people that it's an option.
Yeah. Receive. Okay.
Especially in the context of like leaving this list, you know, if any of us aren't, or all of us aren't, you know, on the NRC in the future, then future members would kind of know that this is a function of the NRC. And it seems like kind of a low hanging fruit. Like there's not many people who submit public comment. And so adding it to the list adds a very small, if any, work.
Yeah. Yeah. What we do, for example, we do have a standard paragraph in all of our pre-application conference notes that we give to developers, which says the Natural Resources Committee is available to provide advice on ways to conserve and protect natural resources on your property. And then it specifies that any discussion is non-binding on the applicant or the committee. And that is also codified in the Natural Resource Overlay District Code. It's not codified elsewhere. It's just codified in the NROD code because of, you know, you would comment on that. But it's also in the pre-app notes as a standard boilerplate piece of language, so that the developer, the applicant who's putting when they're writing their application, they're writing the narrative and they're running through the code, and they have to provide a code response to everything. They should see that and know that it's an option. They don't always do that, but it's an encouraged thing. So. But I've got receive and consider requests to propose changes to natural resources policies and codes. So yeah, I think that's good. Okay. So I will bundle this up and send it to you all as a package. I think we should probably table this, if you wish, to the next meeting. Do you guys?
Yeah,
how do you?
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
We got thumbs up.
I agree.
Okay. Good. All right. So next item up. Okay, that's our work session. So we're wrapping up. That's the end of our work session. So now we're going into our regular meeting. And we don't have any public comment. I'm not sure what happened to Nancy. Did anybody hear from her? Yeah.
I sent her another email, but I have not
I haven't
heard back.
heard from her either.
Well, everything's okay.
Yeah. So let's see. Item 2 we have is, we have at this point we have adoption of the agenda. So are you guys okay moving forward with the agenda written, or would you like to make any additions or changes?
I have a quick question. Given that it's almost 8, We might get to all the items on the agenda. Does it make sense to edit now or
Yes.
postpone?
I'm suggesting on item 3, which is stormwater facilities maintenance.
Yeah, that makes, I would recommend
Would-
one of either 2 or 3. One of those.
At the pleasure of the committee.
Works for me.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, because I don't think the heritage tree stuff will take very long. Great. So this nomination was for a Oregon white oak, which is actually looks like it's more on South End Road as you drive down South End Road than it is on South High Street, as it's in the right of way. The nomination came from Dee Dee Dalsrud and does have the consent of the current property owner. It's technically a street tree, it's not on private property. And it appears to meet the applicable criteria. I wish I could show you a picture of it, but I'll read the letter that the owner sent. We enjoy the beauty of this tree as well as watching the birds and squirrels that spend time in this tree. It provides the only shade that our yard sees in the summer. We just would like to help ensure the future of this tree. Hopefully this process will guarantee the natural life of this beautiful white oak for the jays, towhees, juncos, northern flickers, downy woodpecker, sparrows, finches, robins, and other species that we have seen. We have even seen a bald eagle land in this tree a couple of times. And let's see, the estimate on the age, I forget. It's 36-inch diameter, height 40 feet. And
I don't think there was an age.
no, it didn't have an age estimate. I think I plugged it into a formula and it came out, but I wouldn't want to venture a guess. Apparently PGE, I guess they said the tree company at the time said it is a healthy tree, but owners had it balanced a bit and some stems removed after the 2021 ice storm. And I added in the Google Street Views. There's one from 2012, which has the leaves on. And then the 2021 December photo, which shows the tree with the leaves off, but it's got a beautiful form to it. Are you guys looking at your packets?
Yeah, looking at that right now. Definitely looks like it's been trimmed around the utility lines. It looks like it's a beautiful tree. I mean, it looks, yeah, it's very straight.
Right. Looks like a fairly stable site too. So I think we don't record covenants on public right-of-way trees because they're in the public right-of-way. It is basically if the city commission approves the nomination, any decision to remove this tree would go back to the city commission and have to show that, you know, you have that additional level of criteria for heritage trees, which is in chapter 12.32, not just chapter 1208. And the city commission is making a decision on that. You also would be involved in any decision to remove the tree as you were with the northern white oak on the private property at Loga Street. Go ahead, Sam.
I think there was an error, a typo on the agenda. It's not 1506. It's just 506.
506.
Very.
Yeah, no.
I tried to find 1506 and it doesn't exist. So if anyone tried to look at that site based on the agenda, they wouldn't find it. There is no 1506. So it's 506.
Yeah. Must be.
Right on the corner of High Street and Clinton Street.
There was another typo. Let's see. So the last name is Steffens. It was spelled wrong on the last page. It says Sturfens instead of Steffens.
Where's that?
It's on page 3 of that heritage tree or stand nomination form.
Oh.
I don't know if that makes a big difference, but.
Oh, that's from Dee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, her last name is Stephen's.
Yeah, it's just in that type. Yeah, the minor thing.
Okay, Chris and Brenda.
Yes.
So yeah. Okay. Good to know. So, are you guys supportive of this one?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I support it. It looks good. It's got maybe Pete, you might have some knowledge about this. It looks like there's like a little storm water ditch running adjacent to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Oregon white oaks like getting their feet wet, but it seems pretty wet. But given that it's been wet for
right
a decade, it's probably doing fine. And the canopy looked good. So despite the directional pruning.
Right. I'm guessing the dish is doing more good than harm, considering the other, encroachments on its root system. And that wall is not going anywhere anytime soon. I know that Bill, what was his last name? Former NRC member, talking about how these white oaks love a stable site. They want the basalt nearby, and they really do better in the stable environment. So I'm assuming it's doing okay. Obviously, we don't have a way to, tap on the trunk or do a ground survey or anything like that. But those are no longer criteria for designation. So great. We'll move this up to the city commission level. Thanks, everybody. On to communications. So this kind of ties back to what we were talking about with the street tree code. The city commission opted to kind of table the adoption of the street tree code until we more thoroughly vetted the idea of the pollinator gardens idea. And they also suggested that we revisit the fee in lieu of planting for street trees and reconsider that to make sure it's high enough. And I wanted to initially kind of bounce this off you all because when we adopted the tree mitigation fee, we did get some bids, and then that fee has gone up 3% with the construction price index along with all the other fees on the development fee schedule. And I don't know if that is accurate or not. I was going to talk to the Friends of Trees and see what they're getting in terms of time, average cost of planting a 1.5-inch caliper tree, but I was wondering what you guys have to say about that.
I'll mention that at the last pruning event, this question came up about tree costs, and they have gone up about like 3 times. So like I think
Well,
if my memory serves, I'd want to get their numbers accurate, but they said something along the lines of like $300 for a standard like
okay.
2-inch caliper tree at the low range.
At the low.
So I would say yes, our fee in lieu should be revisited given higher costs in general.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's somewhere around 380 right now. But if, as you say, it may be on the low end. So, and then we're talking about street trees here. If we do go into amending the private development code as well, I'm sure we'll be revisiting that again. My dog. Can you stick your head in the camera again?
Oh.
He's quite the character. Hey, Jones. There you go.
Boy.
Oh, what a cutie.
Yeah, he's a big Great Pyrenees mix.
Oh.
Hi, Bubba.
Is he a talker?
No, he's very silent.
That's rare for Pyrenees.
Oh, right now. Yeah, no, he does bellow when he's upstairs. He's
Oh.
very, very loud. But yeah. Okay. That was the other thing. The other item was, what was it? Oh, gosh. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. It had to do with street tree code anyway. One of the commissioners does not support the covenant idea, and is more concerned about the cost of recording the covenant. So that's the option for someone to designate a tree within the right of way as a street tree rather than replant. They either can replant or designate an existing tree within 10 feet of the right of way on their property. But in that event, we require that they record a covenant that says that this tree is subject to the public tree regulation code so that it can be replaced if it's removed. Because otherwise we would not regulate private residential property in that manner. I don't know if this is more than one commissioner talking. I think it was just one commissioner talking, but wanted to know what you guys thought of the covenant idea. It costs about, on average, about $85 to record a 5-page covenant, and the property owner pays it. Compared to the cost of $380 for replanting, and maybe associated sidewalk damage. I don't know. It's a pretty insignificant fee. And in some cases, the designated tree on private property is much bigger than any tree that could fit in the planter strip, especially if it's a small. So, that's kind of why we put the option there in the code. It has been used. Property owners, we give them all the instructions that they need to go off and record the covenant. It gets notarized and recorded. And it's a deed restriction, so it's recorded on the title of the property. So that's how that works. I have not been in a situation where we've actually had to invoke the covenant, because unless there's a complaint, we won't know if a tree on private property has been removed or not. So there's that aspect of it. But I think the one commissioner's concern was with the cost of the covenant. We could potentially supplement or augment or subsidize the cost of that recordation using the tree mitigation fund. But in my mind, that's kind of deprioritizing planting, and treating it of applicants a little bit differently than other applicants, because if we're gonna subsidize the cost of recording a covenant, we should probably subsidize the cost of replanting a tree, which we don't. So anyway,
Is there any way we could get, I don't know, it doesn't seem like, maybe I just don't know, but has there been any complaints about the cost of the covenant option versus replanting?
it's a very good question.
Because I can understand like someone having that curiosity and having that question, but if no one's complaining, why fix something that's not broken? So
I have not I'm not aware of any complaints, no.
I'd be curious to know what, if any, complaints exist, but I agree with you that we would, at least at the same level as the covenant, we'd subsidize the cost of the tree replacement.
Yeah, right.
So that if we're going to subsidize either, we'd support them equally.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. The other concern, there were two more concerns. Thanks. Now I'm remembering. One was, do we have a definition for certified arborist in the code? And we do. It's the definition from the International Society of Arboriculture. The difficulty that the mayor had was that we refer differently to arborists throughout the code, and I think we have references to licensed arborists, consulting arborists, and registered arborists in addition to certified arborists. So they want us to tighten up the language and to make sure that that's consistent. And then in terms of the priority for planting, they wanted it to be more explicit that there is the very first priority is replanting, and that the burden is on the property owner to show that they can't plant before moving into the offsite planting and covenant option. So they want us to bring back some additional language that better clarifies that is the priority. So we would probably change the code just to add some additional language, and then also make sure that our application form has that priority in it as well. Yeah. We'll be bringing that back to you at the next meeting, or Jude will. So, yeah.
Sounds good. And can you highlight in the areas of the code where there's these inconsistent references to arborists?
Yeah.
Because in some contexts, like a general municipal level arborist, or the initial level of arborists could do a lot. But then if we're asking for like hazard assessment, like those are higher, like as you know, Pete, higher levels of certification and cost. So so I'd want to make sure that we're applying the right labels in the right context.
Yeah, right. Agreed. Yeah, and we have made this decision that the city has made and in the past, which is to kind of call a tree a hazard if there's a sidewalk mobility hazard. And I know that is not a standard definition for an arborist to make that call. It would deal with the tree itself as the hazard if it's dropping something on a target and that kind of thing. But there's that. But I don't see that changing right now. Maybe in the future if we go back and tweak the code a little more. But I'm sensitive to the concern that you had, Sam, about using the industry standard and using a proper definition for what is a hazard tree. So we'll probably bring back definition as well. so that we can tighten that up. Okay. And I found out about this yesterday, so that's why I'm not like super prepared, but all right.
One last note, we had a comment from the commission last week from the presentation. After the presentation, they asked us to look specifically at Tree of Heaven.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if that, I mean, technically they should be on the invasive species list,
Yep.
And they are not on the street tree list at all. But any sort of specific policy or initiative addressing Tree of Heaven specifically.
Right. Well, we agreed that we would, do a updated website thing for it. But if we're going to do another flyer, the funding has to come from some. So we're going to go back to the commission and ask them if they want us to do that or not. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Congratulations. You completed your work plan draft.
Oh, one just follow up on that. Because Nancy wasn't able to make the meeting, like us tabling it for next time, does that also allow for if she has comments about what we did, like we can tweak them? Okay.
No, I'm assuming that she will have it, some input on it as well, and we can revisit some things. So I'm glad we're tabling it.
Oh, great.
Yep. And I need to write it up and put it in a format that you guys can see as a red line document. So, but okay, very good. Future agenda items. Let's cover that. I think we were gonna invite. Well, when's the Xerces Society talking to the CIC?
I think that's March 6th. Let me double check though. It's that first Monday in March, which is the 6th. Yep, and that's at 7.
7? Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're going to be presenting in person or virtually. The CIC is always in person, but
okay, right.
They might just be giving the presentation virtually.
Okay.
And I think that will probably be a shorter presentation than what was given to us because it's a more general audience. And I think Bob had suggested or requested that it was about like 20 minutes maybe instead of, I think we took about double that.
Right.
But presentations have a tendency to go long in CIC, so I'm not sure.
All right. Well, we'll be doing that. So I think we'll be before you at the next meeting with street tree code amendments, more of those, and the work plan. So
yeah, that's right. Yep, that's correct.
And what else will we have? We'll have some additional minutes. And we have a backlog of minutes to adopt. And I'm hoping that we will have an update for you on the city forester thing by then, the arborist position. But yeah, 2 weeks before the agenda goes out, I will get with Sam and Nancy to make sure that the agenda items are teed up.
I have a quick request, potential agenda item, just for the Arbor Day enhancement.
Right.
Can we just a brief update on plan for that?
Yeah, we are working on getting the agenda out. We've got all the contacts. The one contact I don't have is the Hiroshima.
Oh, the Peace Tree event. Yes, the two different events. So there's Arbor Day and there's the Peace Tree event.
Yeah.
Just let me know contact you're looking for the Peace Tree event. But I was also asking about the Arbor Day event, which is a separate event.
Yeah.
That I know John Waverly is
right
working on.
Yeah. So Arbor Day, April 1st at gosh, what did we say? I think it starts at 9:15 and goes to 1 p.m.
The Oregon Trail.
The end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. It'll be a combination of plant trees plus mulching, and some cleanup, shrub plantings as well for Enhancement Day. And then they'll have one or two of the commissioners there helping with that. And then this peace tree ceremony will be a much more publicized and bigger event, I think. But you know, the Arbor Day goes out with a postcard to everybody in the mail, so that'll be coming out. And the peace tree ceremony, we're working with tourism, economic development, and our communications coordinator Jared on trying to publicize that and getting the speaker list narrowed down. Because of the internet problem that we have, we're not able to get into any of our funds at all right now. So we're basically working off of our existing inboxes where the messages are saved and working that way and using cell phones, and we'll be that way until probably the 13th. It's a very dire situation. We got thoroughly hacked. And it's not convenient for anybody. So, but hopefully we'll get up and running here soon.
I just thought, Sam, because you mentioned events, the Spring Resource Fair hosted by Oregon City Parks and Rec is going to be March 11th. I don't know if we want to maybe also have a discussion about that, or potentially, I don't know if it would make sense for the NRC to just attend and have a table and speak about what the NRC does. But I could talk to, yeah, so it's a Saturday. It'll be from 10 to 1. And Xerxes will be there. Oregon City Parks and Rec, Oregon City Farmers Market will have a booth. Clackamas River Water Providers, Environmental Learning Center, and Clackamas County Waste Reduction with master recyclers. And we're waiting to hear back from maybe half a dozen other organizations. But just as kind of like a, for residents to learn more. I contacted Audubon also in the backyard habitat program. Friends of Trees is unfortunately unable to attend because they're all busy planting. But they do have an event, I think like the next week, or let's say April, they have an event April 1st. So we're going to kind of be signal boosting just organizations who aren't able to attend but want their information out there. We'll have like a table with brochures, and if you want to learn more, then here's where you can go. But I guess, yeah, if anyone wants to be more involved, or I don't know if it would make sense for NRC to have a table, but if that's something that there's interest in, I could ask Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably provide a pop-up tent and table. We used to have a banner somewhere with NRC on it.
Oh, cool.
I don't know where it is. But they're cheap. We can get another one made if I can't find it. So that sounds like a really good event.
Yeah, and that's at the Pioneer Center. Sam, is that what you were? Yeah, Pioneer Center. 10. Okay. There's going to be at least one talk.
Okay.
Topic to be determined.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll explore that more in February. Let's see, in March, I mean. Yeah, so shoot me a few more ideas about that. We got some brochure things about, but we don't have anything that really talks about the NRC. And I know that one of the other things that Nancy wanted to cover was how do we get our membership back up? And she was concerned about the how we've got a little bit of a cut and paste job on the website about the NRC, and it's not super friendly. And we'd like to use less codified language, a little more engaging description about what the committee does. So maybe that's something you all come on. All right. I'll say, do you want to adjourn us as vice
Sure.
chair?
Do I need a vote or can I just adjourn?
You can just adjourn.
Okay. Well, given that we've covered all the topics for the evening, I'm thinking we should adjourn at 8:21 p.m. here, February 8th, 2023.
Very good.